Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is SorcererDave, and this is an army showcase video for my Warhammer 40k Orks army. Right, that bit there is probably where normally you'd edit in like a flashy intro bit. So like just sort of, I don't have one. So imagine that like there was a whoosh 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 big SorcererDave logo comes up and like a sponsor thing from that kind of little sponsor movie intro thing. It just whatever. We're here now. We don't have a sponsor. We don't have a flashy intro. It's just me with a camera talking to myself in the back room in front of a load of models. It's my Orks, folks. It's the Orks. I've been meaning to do an army showcase video of these guys for freaking ages, and I finally got around to it because I'm not really doing a lot of other 40k related content these days due to the pandemic. So I tidied up the table here in the back room, and I got all the Orks onto it and was like, I thought I had more than that. But there they are anyway, regardless. Do you know what? I don't think this is actually all of them. There are a few bits missing. For example, I definitely have 3 battle wagons, but there's only 2 over there. I don't know where the other ones are gone. You may be wondering, but how do you lose a battle wagon? And my answer to you is surprisingly easily when you have as much Warhammer as I do, which is more than any reasonable person should have, if I'm being honest with myself. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. These are my Orks. All of them, almost all of them. Let's say like 95% of them. I still have a sneaking suspicion there's some somewhere that are in a box that I haven't managed to remember where I put it. But this is most of them. It's not as big as many people's Orks armies, I suppose. Like the unit variety is a little bit on the thin side, I suppose, because mostly it's boys. Mostly it's Ork boys. All of these guys here. I don't know how many I actually have. There'll be the inevitable question of how many points is this? And the answer is I don't know. I don't add up the points for my armies. I find that to be unnecessary bookkeeping. That sounds far too much like actual work. So I don't keep track of how many points I have, because people ask me in the past, like, how many points of Imperial Guard do you have? And I'm like, I don't know. A lot? Many? Lots? But speaking of lots, yeah, I have lots of boys. Again, I don't know exactly how many. I think somewhere in the region of between 120 and 160-ish, if I had to guess. This is like guess how many sweets in the jar, really, but I think that's roughly how many. I know that I never use all of them in a single game. I never have to date and probably never will either, because there's just no need for that many. Unless I decided to, for some mad reason, do a list that was entirely Ork boys and nothing else, then I could probably fit them all in there. But in your average sort of 2,000 point and less game, there's just no need for that many Ork boys. There just isn't. But that's what the bulk of the army actually is, though. It's Ork boys. When I got into collecting Orks, I was like, right, I'm going to need lots of boys, and I went slightly overboard with it, ever so slightly. This army was not all painted by me. I should point that out. Wasn't all painted by me. Wasn't all even built by me. A lot of it is, as with many of my armies, was rescued from eBay. Like, I go on eBay and I look for people's half-finished models that are going cheap, and I rescue them and I do them up and make them look nice and pretty, which happened with an awful lot of this army, actually. So that's why some bits of it look slightly different. I mean, I like the fact that it all looks a bit different anyway. Like, all the Orks have slightly different tones of green skin, as they probably would, realistically, if you think about it. I know, thinking about realism when it comes to Orks is probably a fool's errand, but still. I like the variety of different looks within this army, because this army's freebooters. This isn't a specific Ork clan, they're freebooters. And freebooters are typically depicted in the narrative as being sort of like pirates. You know, they're spacefaring pirate Orks with pirate hats and stuff like that, which is cool, you know, which is fine. But more generally, freebooters are Orks that are such bad news and are so untrustworthy, even by Ork standards, that they've been kicked out of the main clans. And so that's why this army has no particularly unifying colour scheme, and why lots of these Ork boys you see here have different coloured helmets and jackets and things like that, because they're all rejects, basically. They've all been kicked out of the other clans for being too problematic, I guess, too causing too much trouble, being too untrustworthy, and possibly not even orky enough, you know. So there's a big mix of colours and schemes and all sorts of stuff in here, and I imagine this being sort of one big band of different groups of outcasts and rejects and mercenaries and all sorts of stuff, and it's all led by the big man at the front here. There he is, Warboss Zog himself in his mega armour, built and painted by yours truly in entirety. He's the mixture of an Age of Sigmar Mega Boss and a spare Gazgul kit I had lying around. The old one. The old resin one. Not the new massive one. And some other just general random bits I had from other boxes of Orks and stuff. And this is kind of the result. It's my boy Zog. Warboss Zoglak. Warlord Zoglak, really. Because in the olden times, there were war bosses and there were warlords, and warlords were the big dudes in charge, and your war bosses were sort of like next down the ladder. They're all called war bosses nowadays, but I think of him as being a warlord. So he has mega armor, which means he's actually a Legends choice these days, because they discontinued Ork war bosses in mega armor, which makes me very, very sad. But luckily I can still take him with the Legends rules, and luckily all of my opponents to date have allowed me to do so, which is nice of them. But he's pretty great. In most battles, as you've seen on the channel, he usually takes the Super Cyborg body to give him that 5+ ignore wounds. And I wish to roll for his Warlord trait randomly, because I think he's a bit mad. He's a bit bonkers. Zog's backstory is very basic. Very basic. But the basic idea was that he's the result of a weird boy. A pain boy or a mad doc or someone like that. Basically deciding, ooh, I've got a load of spare Ork body parts. I've got some heads, I've got some legs and arms and a torso or two. What happens if I just sew them together and shoot it with loads of electricity? Yeah. And this guy's the result. This Ork that quickly grew and grew and grew and got bigger and bigger and bigger until he was in charge of his local mob, and just kind of kept shooting on upwards from there. And here he is. He's got a few different bits stuck all over him. There's a big Blood Axe logo, though. I expect maybe the head came from a Blood Axe, which is why he's wearing a hat. And he's got a little Blood Axe logo there. But there's some goth bits in there, and there's a little freebooter logo on his claw, which you can see there. I really enjoyed making Zog. He's one of my favourite models. I really enjoyed building. There's something glorious about building Orks that you kind of don't get so much with other factions. Just that sheer joy of emptying out a couple of kits worth of stuff and just bodging it together with super glue is wonderful. There's all sorts of bits, and he's got like a backpack with some bullets on it. There's a little grot on his back that's holding his boss pole for him. And there's a bag of stick bombs, and he has like a stick bomb launcher on the top there. I like to think that the grot like refills the stick bomb launcher every time he shoots one off. He's got a combi gun, and as I've said before, I didn't want to have to magnetize it, so I put all the combi options on the gun at once, because I thought that was the Orky thing to do. So it's got a rocket on it, and it's got a scorcher on it, and it's got a machine gun bit. So it's got all the bells and whistles, and just whatever he happens to be using in that battle, that's what he's using. It's all represented. You can't say it's not WYSIWYG. WYSIWYG, for those unfamiliar with the term, means what you see is what you get. It's an acronym. And he's got a little backup custom shooter on his leg there in a little holster. Not that he uses it terrifically often, but there it is anyway. But yeah, quite proud of Zog. I do like him a lot. He is my favourite war boss. I have 3 war bosses in total, but this is the one I always use, because he's just the best. Next up, we've got a bunch of characters. Big Mech with a shock attack gun. The shock attack gun is the gun which he vacuums up snotlings, which are little tiny grot-like type dudes. They're not grots, but they're a bit like grots, little snotlings. He vacuums them up into this tube, and they go up the tube, and they go into the gun. And then what the gun does, it's not really a gun, it's a teleporter. It teleports the snotling through the warp, and then it will reappear out of the warp, like over here or something. If let's pretend, for example, this Big Mech was having a bad day and he got into an argument with Zog, and he might fire his shock attack gun. What happens is snotling goes up the tube, in there, gets teleported through the warp, and it reappears hopefully inside Zog, or at least inside his armor, where it will cause some damage. Because the snotling goes completely mad from being in the warp. in the first place. So by the time it emerges, it's just this slavering wreck of flesh, spasming and tearing things apart all over the place because it's gone completely insane. And that's the shock attack gun, and it's a wonderful thing. I love the shock attack gun. My one big mech I have currently is this guy, and he is the shock attack gun big mech because I think the shock attack gun is just brilliant. The alternative versions with like the what's it called, the custom force field, probably actually better on the tabletop, but the shock attack gun's just hilarious, so why would I ever not use it? So there he is. Quite like that model. This is Captain Badrock. He's a named orc character. Now this guy, you can tell by his base being slightly different, but this guy was actually a gift from Dan, aka Red Tooth. He was having to clear out of a bunch of his old orc stuff, and he knew I collected freebooters, so he was like, "Do you want Captain Badrock?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So Captain Badrock is here. He's one of my orc characters that I have. I've never actually used him properly in a bat rep before, or even a battle before. He appeared in the Stomper bat rep as the kind of referee in the middle who was running the whole thing, but he didn't actually take part in the battle. So next up we got Gandork the Green. He's the only one of these really, aside from Badrock, that has like a kind of sort of name. Gandork the Green. He is the result of me lying awake in bed one night at about 4 o'clock in the morning thinking, wait a minute, what if I made an orc weirboy that looked like Gandalf? And so here we are. Again, this is one of my conversions, built and painted by yours truly. He's based on the what's it called? Is it a war chanter or something? An Age of Sigmar orc dude who's waving a couple of bones in the air and shouting. That was the basic sort of chassis, if you like, for this conversion. And then I made this hat for him, completely sculpted myself out of green stuff, which wasn't too hard as it turned out, actually. Easier than I thought it would be. And I found like a random like belt buckly bit to stick on there as well on his hat to sort of complete it. So he's got a sort of wizard hat. He's a snakebite originally, this fella. Obviously, like all of them, kicked out of the snakebites for previous misdemeanors, and that's how he's found himself in this freebooter warband. But he was originally a snakebite, so he's got a snakebite icon on his chest there. He's got a little staff and he's got a little sword, just like Gandalf, and he's got a pair of pistols on his back because sometimes that's what the occasion calls for, and a backup chopper. Because you're going to have a backup chopper, right? Just in case you hit someone a little too hard with the regular chopper and it breaks. It's very snakebite-ish as well. It's sort of a very rough, sharp, pointy chopper, which, its hilt, if you like, its handle is made out of a bone. And it's just wrapped up with some rope with a skull on there as well. So it's very snakebite-ish, along with the staff as well. Yeah, I like him a lot. Another one of my favourite models is Gandork the Green here, doing his thing. It's you can't see his eyes. I don't know what's under that hat. I shudder to think what is actually under that hat, but I doubt it's an ordinary orc head from the mouth up. But no one knows. No one knows what he looks like under the hat because he never takes it off. It's always on there, and all you see is just this shouting jaw underneath, a bit like Judge Dredd. So. Yeah, there's Gandork. Did some little custom designs on there. No decals. I freehand all the little logos and stuff on my orcs because I think it looks more authentic if you actually freehand it. It's a bit wonky because that's how the orcs would do it. They just get a paintbrush out and go mad. So he's got lots of little dags on it and little skull there and some checkers. I like putting checkers on orcs because the thing about checkers is like if you're doing harlequins or something, you got to get the checkers just right, otherwise it looks naff. But with orcs, the checkers can look rough and crap. And it's fine because it was painted by an orc, and so of course it's going to look a bit rough and rubbish. So I like doing that. But yeah, there's Gandork. Very proud of him. Great model. Weird Boys are good as well. I like doing the warp head stratagem on them so they can do 2 powers. He makes quite a team. Him and Zog make quite a team, especially when using Fists of Gork and to jump so I can throw my war boss somewhere across the table. This is a regular war boss. He is a former Bad Moon by the looks of him because he's got lots of yellow on him. Got a big claw, got a big custom shooter. And he's a bit basic and bare bones really. He's like a super cheap war boss I can just chuck in to the army if I really need to. Like not as cheap as he could be. He has got a power claw instead of like a big chopper or something. But, he'll do. He'll certainly do when the occasion calls for it. We have I keep wanting to say Mad Doc, but they're not called Mad Docs anymore. They're called Pain Boys. This is a replacement for the previous Pain Boy, who got my big mech killed at a crucial point in a battle, which lost me the battle, which was absolutely hilarious. But I don't think Zog was very happy about it. So Zog killed the previous Pain Boy, and this is the new Pain Boy. And this is him, painted by yours truly. And yeah, I'm relatively happy with him. I haven't done very much conversion with this one. It's just sort of the generic Pain Boy kit that you get. I think I put him on a slightly larger base. In fact, yeah, I used a base extender on him. He came with a 25mm base, which was really tiny, so I put a 32mm base extender on him. And there he is. He's alright. He's useful. He's quite useful, usually. Mostly for that 6+ feel no pain he gives to nearby units. But also for occasionally reviving and or killing one of my characters. I just like having him around. Because the funny thing about the Pain Boy really is he's a bit of a subpar medic as medics go in 40k, but he really clobbers people with that claw of his. He does a lot of close combat damage. People underestimate him. They look at him and think, oh, it's just a medic character, like an apothecary for Space Marines. You don't need to worry about him. And then suddenly he's clobbered your tank with his power claw, and you're like, oh crap, I didn't realise the Mad Doc Pain Boy was actually that much of a threat, and yet he is. This is another war boss, another one of Zog's lieutenants. This guy's got a combi shooter with some rockets on it. He's got a claw, and he's got an attack squig. This is the attack squig version. He's fun, you know. He's got no specific clan scheme. There's a fair bit of red on there, but that's sort of about it, really. He's actually, this guy's scheme, again painted by me. I kind of modelled it on, like with a lot of my boys, the Orks from Dawn of War, the original Dawn of War campaign, where they had that sort of khaki overalls with red bits on. That's effectively just what I went for. It was nice and generic. Not any particular clan, just sort of colours that he thought was good. And then last, we've got a little mech boy. Not a big mech, just a little mech. Previously seen in a battle report or two, I think when he was standing around on top of the Stomper during the battle report where we were battling over the Stomper with the Ultramarines. I don't use him very often in battles. I have to say, there's not much call for a tiny mech if you've got a big mech around. But he's there, I have him, he exists. Probably a form of Death Skull, I guess, because he's got blue on him, but he's also got a bit of yellow as well, so who knows what's going on with this fella. My guess would be Death Skull, formerly Death Skull anyway. Probably nicked the yellow bits off a Bad Moon, I'd imagine, looted it from them, something like that. As for the boys, well, I've talked about them already, really, there's not much else to say, they're just the boys. Mix of shooter boys and some slugger boys. It's mostly slugger boys, to be fair. I've got some big shooters in there on the occasions that I fancy using them, which is admittedly a bit rare, but hey. I mostly tend to go foot slogging slugger boys. Although one of these days I want to try and put a load of shooter boys in a battle wagon and have them fire out the back at stuff. I think that could be kind of fun, but here they are. It's mostly easy to build Ork boys. There's a few of the regular kit in there, but it's mostly easy to build stuff actually. There's a few sort of unique boys in and about there, either because they've got a slightly weird and unique paint job, or because they've been converted slightly. Converting with Orks is just a part of it's just a way of life, really. It's just part and parcel of the whole thing. But when you need so many boys, sometimes it's easier to just throw creativity in the bin and get a bunch of cheap, easy to build ones, which is what I've largely done with this lot. So there you go. That's the boys, not much else to say about them. Speaking of stuff that's missing, I'm missing one of my flash kits, I've just realised. There should be 5 of them there, but there's only 4. I don't know where the other ones got to. But yeah, I've got some flash kits. I actually got 2 more boxes of them in the cupboard I need to make, so I'll have like 15 flash kits in total, assuming I find the one that I've lost here. In front of them is some Stormboys, a very small unit of Stormboys. There's not much of a reason to take big units of Stormboys, as far as I can tell, really, actually, though, because they don't get the rule that Ork boys get for having more attacks if there's more of them in the unit or whatever. So you can take small units to support Stormboys and it's fine. I have many more Stormboys to make. These are the ones I started on. They're a little Ork mercenary band called the Death Company. And the reason for that is because, as you can see, they've got a lot of looted Space Marine jump packs, which are painted up with black with red crosses on them, like the Blood Angels Death Company. This is an idea inspired by someone I follow on Twitter who said as a joke, oh, you should make some Orks with Stormboys called the Death Company. who paint themselves black with red crosses, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I got some spare Stormboys, not a lot else to do this afternoon, and so here they are. A bit more brightly coloured than some of my other orcs, actually, mostly because I painted these more recently and I forgot to add like the extra layers of wash that I normally do. But to be fair, these guys probably spend more time in the air than on the ground, so they don't get quite as covered in mud. Mud and dirt is kind of the theme with this lot, actually. I went for a very dark and grimy colour scheme for these guys with very muddy bases because I just sort of fancied it. I like the look of dirty, grimy orcs, especially since they are freebooters with a particularly dirty, grimy reputation as well. It just works for me. I really like it. It also makes painting them much easier because you can get very lazy with it and have all the mountains of shade wash cover up your mistakes. So that works too. The way I used to do it actually was with not any specific wash. What I used to do is I would mix up. I think it was something like 1 part black paint, 2 parts or 2 or 3 parts Agrax Earthshade, and I mixed all that up in an empty pot I had, and that was what I basically used as the shade wash on a lot of these guys, which is why they have such a dark shade all over them, basically. Since then, I've tried using other bits like just regular Nuln Oil or Agrax Earthshade or Basilicanum Grey. Or Black Templar, which are the new contrast paints with all varying degrees of success, which means they're varying degrees of mucky, these guys, and I'm fine with that. I like to experiment, and the less uniform they look, almost the better as far as I'm concerned. Here's 3 trucks. They're just trucks, they do truck things. I like some more trucks, possibly some more unique looking trucks. But they're trucks, they do truck stuff. And in front of them is some tank busters. A mix of the old metal tank busters whose sculpts I really do like, actually. And they got a lot of character to them, like the guy there with the looted Aquila from the front of an Imperial tank stuck on his shoulder as a trophy. I really like these guys. But it's a mix of the old metal tank busters and just some dudes with rocket launchers converted out of boys' kits. So, a big blob of tank busters. They usually ride around on truck shoot and stuff. Again, I'd like more tank busters because more rockets is always good. And they got a couple of bomb squigs with them as well. You could technically, with a unit of that size, I think have 4 bomb squigs, but the 2 are the only ones I have because they came with the metal ones. So, yeah, I only have 2 bomb squigs, but bomb squigs are fun. Next door, we got some killer cans. I got 2 units of these with a variety of weapons. Killer cans are a bit crap, honestly. I think they look awesome. I love the look of these killer cans. I'm very pleased with them. I wish I could use them more often because I wish they were a bit better, but they're really kind of rubbish. Killer cans are like little tiny mini death dreads with grots driving them around, which means they're a bit crap in close combat but have slightly better shooting. And next to them we've got a couple of death dreads, which are like the definite article. A couple of death dreads here. One's got a flamer and 3 melee weapons, one's got 4 melee weapons. I want to make more death dreads and convert them out of stuff. I got an idea the other day for like a looted Eldar Wraith Lord as a Death Dread, which could be quite funny. And what I really want to do is do looted Carnifexes. Because you may remember one of the previous battle reports I did, Zog killed a couple of Carnifexes, one of which was Old One Eye, and I love the idea of the Orcs doing like a brain transplant to put a squig brain in these dead Carnifexes and then shoot them full of electricity and wire them up to a machine so they can control them. So I'll have a couple of like Carnifexes, looted Carnifexes with bits stuck all over them and a dude riding them on the top like a bucking bronco into battle and use them as death dreads. I really, really do fancy the idea of doing that. I just need to get my hands on some Carnifexes and actually start converting them. So that'd be quite fun. I'm pretty sure I got a spare Space Marine Dreadnought lying around as well. I think I've got one of those easy to build Redemptors that I could turn into a Death Dread. And I've got, well, what I want to get is one of those, what are they called? Invicta Tactical Warsuits, the Phobos Primaris. Like, it's a Dreadnought, but it's not a Dreadnought because it has a pilot that's alive bit in the middle, and it's just weird because it's got the giant heavy bolt pistol and it has no armor for the pilot because they wanted to make it look like the power loader from Aliens, and I'm not a big fan of it, honestly. I think it's a bit daft, but I think it would look awesome as an Orc vehicle. If you put an Orc in there instead of a Space Marine, I think it would look fantastic. So cover it in bits of scrap metal. That'd be great. I think it would be lovely. So I want to get one of those and turn it into a death crit at some point. More killer cans. There's the other 3. I think I might have a couple more somewhere, but they're broken at the minute. I need to fix them. Warbikers. I want more Warbikers. I've only got 8 Warbikers at the minute. I'd like to have more because I think Warbikers are really cool. Hold on, let's go get a better look at them. There we go, that's better. Warbikers, Ork Bikers. I think they're great. I love Ork Bikers. They're my favourite bikers in the game. I want more. I want more of them. Yes, I do. I have a bunch of spare Space Marine bike kits in the cupboard of shame somewhere, which I think I might turn into more Ork Bikers. Because, I mean, we're getting new Primaris Space Marine bikes in 9th edition now. So I don't know if I'm going to have much use for my old bike kits. So I might turn them into more Ork bikes, which is going to be good fun. I haven't used these in a battle report yet, I don't think, the Warbikers. Next time I use the Orks in a battle report, I'll see if I can remember to throw the Warbikers in. Because I don't think I've had them. This is probably the first time they've been on camera. But I like them a lot. They're really cool. Got a blob of knobs at the back there behind them as well. Ork knobs. A mixture of the boss knobs that lead the boy squads and like actual proper knobs. Working on more of these. I want more. I think the knobs with the big choppers, like the cheap and cheerful loadout, I think that's really good. I'd like to have a load of them like crammed into a truck or a battle wagon or something. That'd be really fun. And you get some mega knobs as well, but they're mega expensive. Like a box of 3 mega knobs from Games Workshop is just extortionate, even by their usual standards. So I'm wondering if I should maybe convert some out of a box of Terminators or something I've got lying around. That could be quite fun, actually. Yeah, that could be a laugh. Call them the Death Wing. D-E-F-F Wing. And they'd be all looted Dark Angel, Death Wing, Terminator. Yes, yes, that's what I'll do. I've just decided this right now on camera. That's what I'm going to do. That's how I'm going to get my Mega Knobs. Anyway, above them I've got a plane. It's a Blitzer bomber, or can sometimes be a burner bomber, depending on what I feel like. I haven't done its base yet. That's why you've not seen it in a battle report. I've been really lazy about doing the base for it. Whoops. Got a couple of battle wagons. As I said, 3 is the total battle wagons I actually have. The third one is an ex-Death Skulls 1 with a death roller on the front. I don't know where I've put it. I actually can't remember. But these are the 2 I could remember where I put them, including this one, which needs to go back to the mech shop. It's got a bit of battle damage on there. I think that Ork on the top there's missing his arms, and that turret there is missing its gun. So I need to fix that up. It doesn't get used very often. 1 battle wagon's usually enough, so... But yeah, I should probably fix that. Last but not least, the elephant in the room. This looted knight, which I typically use as a Morkanaut. You know, I use the big cannon on there as the big Morkanaut gun and so on and so forth. At least until some actual rules for looted knights come along, which would be hilarious, but I don't expect that anytime soon. The thing about Morkanaut is it's supposed to have a transport capacity, but until now I've basically just figured that the Orks that are being, in air quotes, transported by it, they just ride on the top, basically. They just hang around on the top, shouting, "Wah!" as it stomps into battle with them on board. That's my general thinking. And the Stomper, the Rust Bucket the second, because the first one got blown up in that scenario I did with Heathage. It's got the top bits made from a battle wagon, and it's covered in rust. Now, normally I'm not a big rust guy when it comes to 40k models, like on Imperial vehicles in particular. You know, Orks and Nurgle get a free pass, but unlike Imperial vehicles and stuff, I get that people put loads of rust on them because it looks pretty, but it doesn't really do it for me. It's very realistic. I think the Space Marines would probably execute whichever menial was responsible for allowing their tanks to get so rusty if it was real. Like it doesn't work for me. But Orks, on the other hand, I don't think they care. Particularly this lot. You know, probably looted this thing out of bits from a scrapyard in the first place. So I don't think they really give a damn that it's covered in rust. You know, they're not going to get out steel wool and start scrubbing it off, are they? They're just going to go wah and ride it into battle. They'll probably get blown up straight away anyway. So then they'll build another one out of spare scrap. So don't really mind. As to the overall muddy, rusty, you know, grimy aesthetic of the entire army. So yeah, rust is fine if it's on Orks or Nurgle. Anyone else though, and I start to raise an eyebrow personally. But it's a great bit of kit, the Stomper. Obviously, hilariously overcosted on the tabletop, which is why you don't see people use them very often. But it's good fun, regardless. It's good fun when you do bother to bring one. It's the biggest model in the army so far. That might not always be the case, because one day I'd like to get one of those Forge World Gargantuan Squigoths to be the real crowning centerpiece of the army. Not today, though. They're expensive and they're made of resin, which is always a pain in the bum. But one day I'd like to get a massive Squigoth to lead the army into battle, which would be awesome. I don't think you can get Gargants, can you? I don't think that's a thing you do, really. At least it doesn't have rules. I'm sure you could build a Gargant if you wanted to out of stuff. And plenty of people have, but I don't believe it's got any actual rules from Forge World or anything like that, so... There's plenty of stuff I want to add to this army. I know it looks massive, but the actual unit variety is a little on the small side. I don't have any of the new Speed Freak stuff yet, for example. Don't have much in the way of that. I need more Stormboys. I need more Tank Busters. I need more Knobs. I need more Bikes. What's also conspicuous by its absence in this army is Grots. I don't have any Grots. I want to get some Grots. I will at some point. The plan for them will be to fit the overall theme of Outcast Freebooter Orks. Is all the Grots will be like the Rebel Grots from Gorka Morka back in the day. The Grot Revolutionary Committee or whatever it was. So we'll have Grots, but they'll be Rebel Grots, is the idea.
And I'm afraid right about now is where my camera ran out of memory, so I had to stop filming. So I took a few photographs and decided to call it a day, as far as that went. But hey, that's fine. Never mind. I'll remember to free up some memory before I film when I next make another showcase video. What I was going to tack on to the end of this video was a little bonus segment where I show you some of the stuff that I have been working on that's on the production line, so to speak, for the army. And on the screen right now should be a photograph of some things that you can see here. Some things. There's other stuff as well that's in the works, but this is the stuff that's built so far and not just not painted yet. I've got a big mech. I've got a little big mech with a force field because I kind of really need one. The shock attack gun big mech is hilarious and awesome and I love him, but the custom force field one is probably more useful because you can march him up the table in amongst a bunch of boys and have them be protected by the force field, or put him in a vehicle and the vehicle gets a force field and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be a really good idea to do, and I dug up this. I got this guy ages ago, this model. He's not a Games Workshop one. He's from Cromlech, and he's this sort of weird, I guess, a Blood Axe big mech, which I guess you don't see very often, but he's got like a little army uniform and a hat and everything, a little bit like Zog, actually. And he's got the custom force field, and he's got a big claw. And I glued a grot with a jetpack on the top, just for giggles, because I had him lying around, and I thought, all right, I'm just going to stick a random grot on there to complete the model. But as you can see, I've sprayed him with the lead belcher base coat, and I've not got any further than that yet. But that's my additional big mech that I'm going to be adding to the army. A Blood Axe big mech. So yeah, a Blood Axe big mech who wears an officer's cap and makes lots of strange inventions that the other orcs probably think aren't very orky, I suppose. He's definitely more cunning than he is brutal, that one, I guess. Next up, I've got this thing. I call it a thing because I'm not entirely sure what it's going to be, honestly. The original intent was to start getting into the Speed Freak stuff, but this is during the lockdown, so I couldn't buy any Speed Freak stuff, so I thought, well, fine, I'll convert some Speed Freak stuff then, using a bunch of old kits I had, and I had a few old Dark Eldar kits I didn't really need. I bought like 3 years ago and never ended up using. So I started to put some of them together, and I created this looted Dark Eldar Raider thing, which originally the idea was it was supposed to be a scrapjet from the new Speed Freaks range. It's supposed to be a scrapjet, which is like ordinarily it's an orc jet fighter that has lost its wings, like its wings have been blown off. So it just goes along the ground at very fast speed and smashes into things and fires rockets all over the place. Is the general idea. But I figured like a this Dark Eldar Raider with a tail bit stuck on, a few little stubby wings with some rockets on there would just about do the job. And I loaded out the weapons to match the scrapjet profile. So you can see it's got a missile launcher on there. It's got rockets on the wings and one on the top of the tail. And it's got a grot gunner with a twin big shooter. So that's exactly the weapons the scrapjet has. Problem with it is I think it's a bit big to be a scrapjet. I don't actually own one of the new scrapjets, so I don't know how big they actually are, but just eyeballing it, I'm kind of thinking it's possibly a bit big. In the middle there's actually another orc that's supposed to be there waving a stick bomb around, but he's not on there right now because I'm going to glue him on after I finish painting it, because it'll be easier to actually paint him if he's not already stuck on the model. But in that middle bit between the grot and the pilot, there will be another orc waving a stick bomb around and going "Rah!" as you do when you're flying along at high speed in one of these things, I suppose. But I don't know what else I'd use it as. I suppose I could put it on a big flyer stand and use it as like a Dakar jet or something, I don't know. Or a WASBomb blaster jet, or I could maybe just use it as a battle wagon. It's a bit small to be a battle wagon, though. And I could use it as a truck, but it'd be such a shame to use it as just a random truck. I think that'd be really boring. So, and it's also a little bit big for a truck too. So, don't know. Probably a scrapjet. It might be a bit big for that, but the idea is to use it as a scrapjet until I'm told to do anything else. Like even the drill on the front of the scrapjet, I kind of decided to represent with the ram on the front of the Raider, which has been augmented with a couple of giant squiggoth horns, or tusks, or whatever those are meant to be. So yeah, I like it. Whatever it is I've built, I think it's fun. But I will figure out a use for it at some point, I'm sure. I also built this thing, and unfortunately, I think the photo is a little bit blurry here because I didn't. The camera was wobbling a bit when I took the photo, so apologies for that. But it's this is supposed to be a shock jump dragster. Basically, it's a looted Dark Eldar Venom. But the idea is it's meant to be the shock jump dragster, which is the really fast car that the orcs have, which is like the car from Back to the Future. If it goes fast enough, it teleports, and that's the general idea. So it's got a pilot in the front, and it's got the shock rifle thing built into the nose, and it's got a dude on the back with a rocket launcher, and it's got a weird sticky outy teleporty bit at the back there as well, and that's the general idea. It's a shock jump dragster, aka a looted Venom, which has got some massive engines stuck on the back and stuff. I'm quite pleased with that one too. I got some other bits to loot from my Dark Eldar box collection. I want to make a Dakar jet using one of the Dark Eldar flyers, the Razor Wing jet fighters. I have one of those in a box that wasn't getting used for anything, so I think I'm going to try and turn that into a looted Razor Wing, aka a Dakar jet, I think. I have a bunch of stuff that I want to convert to orky bits. You see, the fun thing about orcs is that if you have the right mindset, if you have the right sort of looting, converting mindset, any new Games Workshop release is an orc release. Because you just need to loot it. That's all you have to do. You just loot it, and it's an orc unit now. Congrats. Someone laid down a challenge kind of recently with a suggestion. I was talking to them on Discord, and the idea was a looted Catan. And I want to do it, because I've got the Nightbringer in a box somewhere. And I know there's new Necron stuff coming out in 9th edition, but I'm not really into Necrons very much. Funny, really, because I think they were my second army I had back in 3rd edition. They're back when they were first sort of they first sort of properly came out with their own codex and stuff. But I really liked the old Necrons with their old lore about them basically being spooky ancient metal skeletons that just want to kill all life. But nowadays they've been sort of turned into space tomb kings with like pharaohs, and they're all Egyptian themed, and I don't. It doesn't do it for me. They took the Catan from being these all powerful star gods, and they broke them into shards in the new lore, and effectively they use them like glorified Pokemon. Like they keep them inside a thing, and then they blast them out to fight their enemies for them and stuff. I just don't. I'm not on board with it. I've tried to like the new Necron lore, and it has its moments. Like, I'm not going to deny that Trazen the Infinite is hilarious, for example. He's very funny, and the time-traveling one, the one that can travel back in time or forward in time to make sure that his prophecies come true, that's very amusing as well. But for the most part, I prefer the old Necron lore, where they were a bunch of really... It was mostly about the horror factor. They were mostly scary. They didn't have any real personality beyond being super, super, super ancient robots that have come back to kill everything in the galaxy. I suppose for some people that just seemed a bit too much like metal Tyranids, but I really liked them, and I was a bit sad to learn that their lore had been completely changed when I came back to 40k later on, but hey, there it is. So I have Necron bits, essentially. I got way off track there, didn't I? Wow. The short version is I have Necron bits that I'm going to convert. I would like to do, one of the next things on my to-do list is a looted Necron Ghost Ark. Like, it's a Necron Ghost Ark, but the Orks have looted it and turned it into a battle wagon, is the general gist of the idea I have for that. I don't know quite how I'm going to execute that plan, but I will somehow. I'm not entirely sure how, but I will do it. Somehow. I don't really know. But I like really unlikely things for the Orks to loot. The more unlikely, the better, I think. The funnier it is, really. But yeah, looted Catan is the challenge that I'm still trying to puzzle out in my head how it would work. Like a looted Nightbringer. Like, they found a Catan shard, and they've done something really dumb with it. Like, you know, the weird boy has channeled it full of green Y energy, and they've corrupted it, and now it's become all orky. You know, something like that. I don't know how I would build that, though, as a model. It needs some serious thought. Like, it'd be like the Nightbringer as usual, like, you know, Grim Reaper with a scythe and stuff, except he's an orc Grim Reaper or something, and he's bright green. I don't know how I'd make it work, but I'm determined to meet the challenge of the idea of what a looted Catan shard would look like. I don't know. Anyway, some other bits here. As I said, I needed more knobs, and I'm on the way to making more knobs, including one with a war banner, which is the puniest, tiniest war banner ever, and it makes me laugh. I have another orc knob with a war banner somewhere, but this is the one I managed to find in order to make the video with. Yeah, he's got the tiny little puny itty-bitty war banner that he doesn't feel insecure about even slightly, I'm sure. But this guy's already sort of half-painted. And it's a good explanation of the way I paint my orcs. That's why I threw him in here, because I thought, actually, this is a really good opportunity to talk about how I paint my orcs. And this is how I do them. I basically, I base coat them all with Xandri dust, this deserty yellow color out of the spray can. And then I paint most of it just using shade washes and contrast paint. In this guy's case, I did his green skin with just a couple of layers of Bale-Tan green wash. And I change up the green I use occasionally to get that varied different skin shades with the orcs. Sometimes I use the contrast orc flesh. Sometimes I use Militarum green. Sometimes I use Bale-Tan green, and so on and so forth to get different shades. But this guy in particular was done with a couple of layers of Bale-Tan green. And then he just fill everything else in with either shade washes or contrast, mostly, except for the metal bits that I'll actually use a metallic paint for. And that's how I do it. It is a super, super fast way to do orcs, essentially. And I really like it. And then once you've got everything all sort of coloured in and stuff, you just slap a couple of layers of Nuln Oil or Agrax or whatever you want, shade wash over it to make him look dark and grimy. And then you do his base, and then job done. Easy peasy. Doesn't take very long. Like that huge pile of orcs, like the orc boys I've got, like 120 or so of them, you would be surprised how long it did not take me to do them, really. So there you go. That's more or less how I paint my orcs. That's how I do them. So yeah, boys, not boys, knobs, more knobs, and as you can see, most of them have got the big choppers. So that's the plan. More knobs with big choppers in a battle wagon. Jumping out to crump something. Probably the battle wagon can get destroyed, which means they can get out and then they can use the loot it stratagem to get 3+ armor save for the rest of the battle. So at that point, you've got orc knobs with 2 wounds each, toughness 4, 3+ armor saves. They're effectively Space Marines at that point. They're effectively Primaris Space Marines with big axes, is the idea, which I think is genuinely a little bit scary. So they're next. And then there's the looted Dark Eldar vehicles and some of the other looted bits. And as we already mentioned in the video, I want to try and do some looted Terminators, some looted Deathwing Terminators, which I think would be very cool and funny to use as mega knobs. Because I think I have a few Terminators lying around, like in a box somewhere that I don't need, that I can orcify. Is the general gist of the idea there. I don't think there's much else to say, is there really? I think I've more or less said everything. I mean, I could go into a big narrative bit about the narrative of this army, but the thing is, there isn't much of one, really. That's the thing with orcs. Their narrative is that they're orcs. As I explained, Zog's fleet, his war of sorts, is essentially freebooters. They're made up of outcasts chucked out of other orc tribes for being troublemakers, and they've banded together as a loose conglomeration of mercenaries and outcasts that follow Zog around because he's the biggest orc around, which will actually, put up with their shenanigans. And so that's generally what they do. They sail around with their big fleet in the Acheron sector, causing mayhem and destruction, and generally having big fights with people, and having a good time, as orcs generally tend to do. It's not... With orcs, for me, honestly, it's not so much about the tortured backstory as it is about just following them around as they do fun things. And seeing what fun things they do and looting some of those things. That's the way they work, really. They cruise around, they kill stuff, and what they don't kill, they loot. And so the war grows. And they're just there to have fun with. My orc army is not an army I get out when I want to win, at the end of the day. They're the army I play when I want to have fun more than anything else. Whenever I go to an event or something like that, not so much tournaments, I don't really do tournaments, but if I go to an event like the DZ TV Open Day that was on last year, I usually bring the orcs with me. Because I know that both players will probably have fun if I bring the orcs. It's not like if you bring a slightly cheesier army like Eldar or something like that, something that's going to really annoy your opponent. Like, I don't know, the Alpha Legion. But the Alpha Legion are my arch nemesis, in case you're new to this channel. I don't have time for those bastards. I hate them so much. But with the orcs, I always know that I'm going to have fun, and my opponent, 9 times out of 10, is going to have a ton of fun as well. So they're great for that. And that's what I do with them, really. My other armies, I delve more deeply into the lore, and I come up with backstories and interesting stuff about them. But the orcs, not so much. It's mostly about Zog and his chums having a good time. That's their narrative, really, just having a laugh. And I'm completely okay with that. So there it is, folks. There's the Orks Showcase. As for lore and narrative and stuff with regards to my other armies and that sort of thing, and the general narrative of all of my armies that I have on my channel here, that I do in my battle reports, you can check out the blog I have. I have a blog called the Codex Acheron, and it has one post on it. I made it in August last year, and I made one post on it, and I never did another one. I'm in the process of finally writing another one. But the one post I have on there is quite a big one, and it is a basic intro to the Gulf of Athena, which is the little sector of the galaxy of 40k that I've claimed for my own, and which is where all my stories happen and where all my armies live, basically. The Gulf of Athena, it's called. And there's a big, long blog post that's written in the style of a Warhammer 40k codex. So it's sort of semi-in-universe information, with lots of pretty pictures and diagrams that I made, and you can read all about it on there. Link will be below, either in the comments or in the description, or both if I'm feeling a bit weird. And I am, as of recording this right now, I am in the process of working on another blog post on there, which will go into the history of the planet Hades, which is where my Space Marines call home, the planet of Hades, in the Styx sector. And that should be fun. I'm enjoying writing it so far. It's been a creative exercise in creating a very strange planet with a weird history. And I'm enjoying it very much. And that'll be up some point soon, whenever. But I have the blog for putting random fluff narrative bits on every now and again. Something, it's not like the big story time videos I'm doing here, where it's like I'm practically writing a short novel and then narrating it directly to the microphone as an audiobook. It's a bit more short form than that, and it's a bit more sort of, like I said, it's like a Warhammer 40k codex. It's like you're reading entries from a codex, is the general idea. So you can go check that out, and there'll be more getting added to it as the months go by. as I come up with new stuff, as the mood strikes me, essentially. But that's it for now, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed this little showcase video. I thought it'd be fun to make, and I have enjoyed making it. I was watching a lot of the deployment zone stuff. I've been on the deployment zone a few times, so I have a vested interest of a sort. But I watch a lot of the deployment zone stuff with Liam and Winters. And I noticed that they were getting a lot of their regulars on their channel to do army showcases, because obviously they're not able to record many battle reports in the minute, much like me, because of the pandemic and the lockdown. So they started getting people to do army showcases instead, where they point the camera at the army and talk about it. And I discovered that I was actually enjoying those army showcases more than just regular battle reports. I really dig watching someone talk about their models for like an hour and explain through it all and point the camera at it and talk about it. I really gets my hobby enthusiasm going to go and make some stuff for some reason. So I thought I'd make one of my own, which is this Ork one, because I've never done a real proper showcase of the Orks on this channel. There's a few of my armies I have done showcases of and storytime videos for, but the Orks haven't got anything yet. I know a few people wanted to see me do something like that for them, so I have now. If people want to enjoy this, I'll obviously do more. I could do one for my Eldar, my Dark Eldar, and my Craftworld Eldar, because they've not really had much of a showcase on the channel so far. I could do one for them. When I get my Space Marines all repainted in the new scheme, I'd be very happy to do one for them. I can obviously get all the Imperial Guard out and talk about them a little bit. And I can showcase all the Sisters of Battle I've done so far as well, I suppose, as an added bonus, if you like. At some point, when I've done a few more of them, I'll showcase my new Age of Sigmar army as well. In the previous hobby vlog thing I did, I talked a bit about how I had this idea for fire elves from the Realm of Fire, and that idea has not quite gone in the bin, but it's on hold for now, because I don't know when the Games Workshop are actually going to release these new Lumineth models, because they've been showcasing them, but the pandemic has kind of ruined their release schedule. And I wanted to get started on something now. So what I decided to do instead was some Skaven. Instead, because I really like Skaven. My first introduction to Warhammer Fantasy Battles back in the day was actually a battle report in White Dwarf involving Skaven. And I remember looking at them and thinking, man, those are really cool. Look at the little rat ogres. That's awesome. And so I've always kind of liked Skaven, because they're one of the things that's really uniquely Warhammer. Like, that isn't nicked from Tolkien or something like that, like a lot of the elves and orcs and stuff are. Like, the Skaven are very uniquely Warhammer. So I've been working on some Skaven in the background. I don't have any pictures for you yet, but once I've got enough of them done, I will show you some. Either as their own showcase or as a bonus on another showcase or hobby vlog thing. But I've been making some Skaven in the background too. Don't think there's anything else to say. This has been just this bit here with me narrating off camera, as in like in post. This has been 20 minutes of me talking about Orks alone, not including the other bit at the start before the camera ran out of memory. So this is probably a long video. I hope you enjoyed it anyway, folks. People tend to like the longer ones because it gives you more stuff to listen to while you're doing painting. And I happen to agree with you, because that's what some of you said on the last hobby vlog. Like, you liked that it was really long because you could have it on in the background when you were painting a bunch of your own models. And I agree, because that's what I like to listen to as well. I like to listen to long vlogs and podcasts and things when I'm painting for exactly the same reasons. So hopefully the length is actually a feature and not a bug, as far as this video is concerned. But I am pretty much done now. So thanks very much for watching / listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. I'm happy to do more army showcases in the future, because why not? Not got anything better to do. And in the meantime, stay safe, everyone. I'll catch you again very soon. Have fun doing whatever it is you're doing. And that's it for now. Catch you next time.